as you were suggesting that there's hidden messages, in the State of the Union speech by Barack Obama.
No.
No?
I wasn't. That wasn't my report. I don't speak about personalities like Obama and so forth.
Okay. Well, okay. I must have got my research a wee bit wrong there, but I'm sure it was in there. And one of these times when we take a break, I'll get it.
Yeah. Look it up. And are we talking about shape number 9 here?
No, that's not what it was. That's not what it was about. It was about the Warren Court.
The which now?
The Warren Court.
Warren.
No. Okay.
No.
It must be missing.
No. Yeah. You've got me confused with someone else.
Yeah,
because I don't usually discuss political people or even mention their names.
Sure, it's just misinformation. Okay. Well, back to the expanding Earth theory there. Have you looked into the Neil Adams grown Earth theory?
Oh yeah, sure. I think he's very accurate in his portrayal in that his little idea, or excuse me, let me not put it that way because it's denigrating, but the concept that they have of a giant nuclear reactor, if you will, in the middle of the Earth is lacking only one thing, and that's this pulse to feed in the necessary external energy that caused the whole process to keep going. Mm-hmm. So I think he's quite accurate. And his videos, it's very much like I've been telling people, don't argue with me, argue with your lying eyes. Yeah. Go look at his videos.
Well, of course, every planet is expanding, as we know.
Yes. Some are not anymore, though, is the issue. It's like Mars. Mars is very curious that way because at this point, Mars does not have a plasma core. There hasn't been growth in Mars for we don't know how long. And that actually falls in line with Jay Weidner, because Jay Weidner's theory is that these nasty Martian fellows who call themselves Aryan, who we mistake because they're so tall and thin and pale because they live underground on Mars most of the time, we mistake them for vampires and such, and have set off all of these various different themes in human history, that these guys come down and cause problem every now and then, but that they're safe from the solar problems that we're going to go through here on Earth because Mars has no plasma core. It's not a live planet anymore.
Okay. See, I'm just looking at a few things here regarding your report. I hope I've been reading the right report.
Yeah.
The data suggests...
What's the title? What's the title of it?
Oh, I couldn't mind off the top of my head, Clif, to be quite honest with you. But this will tell me if I'm reading the right report, okay?
Sure.
Your data suggests that there could be mysterious transportation crashes of an international nature, which is an attempt basically to cover up and hide corruption.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the kind of language that we have. Certainly, yes.
When do these? Is this 2011 or is this next year? Or?
Yeah. No. This is this year. This is 2011. There's going to be quite a bit of chaos that will invade our world in a serious way from the 25th onward, from March 25th onward, in the form of changes, and some of those changes will be on the order of the WikiLeaks kind of thing, where more and more sources continue to come out with details that will allow a lot more surety in describing the web of corruption around the planet, and those that control the web will attempt to do away with some of their more irritating exposers.
Now, the transportation crashes, which is going to be designed, I would imagine, to hide evidence, basically. Alongside that, the data suggests that we're going to have banker suicides as well.
Yes, and suicides, let's put that in quote. Bankers will be suicided.
Right, yeah, okay. But also further into your report as well, it suggested that there could possibly be... what was the phrasing? One within the banking community, the banking community who hoards gold.
We're getting into a situation there. relative to the gold and silver and so forth, that it's going to start coming out that so much of the gold is gold-plated tungsten, and there's going to be a lot of questions about who owns real gold. Basically, correct. It's good, but in the grand scheme of things, the gold-silver economics, the death of the dollar, and that sort.
Yeah, guys, sorry about the interruption in the stream there. It appears that we are being, technical term, Clif. Cracked.
We're being cracked, yes.
We're being cracked. And those of you know what that's about, you'll understand what's happening. Okay, just before the stream dropped off there, we were talking about gold and silver, Clif. Can you run that over again?
Yeah, go into that in a bit, because our data suggests that the panic to buy, the panic to own will, in terms of the language hitting the mainstream press, the propaganda press, will really start ramping up after about the 16th or so of July, and then will be very acutely reported on all the way through October. This is going to be a lot of chagrin and saying, I wish I had, or I sure could have, and I should have, that kind of thing, as gold and silver escalate relative to currencies, which is really, in my way of thinking, is not the way to think about it, because it's not an opportunity to make money, because my viewpoint is that money is, in fact, one of the evil mechanisms of control that the current system has over all of us, and to a certain extent it's going to be going away over these next 2 years as we face the crisis in our solar system's environment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we'll go.
But it's a good time to own gold and silver relative to paper. So if you're into paper debt instruments, stocks, bonds, currency, that kind of thing, you're going to be severely disappointed in its perceptions of wealth here by October.
See, you can't eat gold or silver, Clif, is the thing, and I think food is going to be the biggest currency, if you want to use that word for that. Because there is that. I agree with you, and I've always maintained that. And I'm a poor fellow, so I concentrate on food right away, and I don't really care so much about gold and silver, and I don't sell gold and silver. I'm just pointing it out that I get asked that a lot, because a whole lot of people have food under control, and then they have a little bit extra, and they want to know how to preserve its ability to do something in the future. Mm-hmm. And I'm of the opinion that that's probably a good idea to have the gold and silver if you've already got your food taken care of. But there's sort of a misnomer in this whole thing, or a misunderstanding in this whole thing as well, and that is the idea that you can take care of your food supply has a whole lot of assumptions that are not necessarily valid. Those assumptions being that you're going to be where you're at right now, where your food is. And as we've seen from Japan, that's not necessarily true. You may have to move at a moment's notice, or the planet may move you, regardless of your best intent to stay there. Mm-hmm. So I think it's much more important to know how to identify local edible weeds than to have a huge, excessive amount of food that's stored. And the idea that you can store food for years, I find to be actually rather disturbing as a vegetarian. The idea of eating years-old food is a little bit creepy. Even if it's freeze-dried, it doesn't have the essential energetic nutrients that you really need. So for me, it's much more important to be able to identify plants that I can eat that are alive and healthy right then, as opposed to trying to store up vast quantities of freeze-dried whatchamacallits. Mm-hmm. See, that's the thing that we here at TNS Radio and all the various sites that's in conjunction with TNS Radio, for instance, the site that the Scottish use, Scottish Sovereigns in the Land, .ning.com, we are suggesting to people that they should really start getting stocked up in food and water for what's coming, So
I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing at all. But there's no point to have 5 years.
Yeah. Well, what does your analysis or your data suggest then about when a food crisis could kick into play? We're certainly getting messages here in the UK that it could possibly be as soon as kind of May, June, July this year.
Oh, it will be this spring. There's no question about it. We've already seen the initial parts of the food crises manifest, which is the early indicators. There was this interesting American by the name of Buckminster Fuller. I don't know how many people outside of America or even in America are familiar with him, but he developed this methodology for doing global resource analysis back in the 20s, and I employ that methodology, as do a lot of firms. And a lot of companies, and you'll follow key indicators, and those key indicators for the last 6 or 7 years have said we're heading for a food crisis that's going to be manifesting in the next few months as we run into bad weather, ecological disaster, GMO crops, all of these various things, all contributing to basically a crash of our ability to grow food at the levels required by our current distribution system for the populace as a whole. Now, I put that in there because we waste, as a planet, we waste more food in a week than we need to consume in a month. But our distribution system and our economic system and so on hampers us from effectively feeding ourselves. But so, as long as the current economic system lasts, I agree with you. If you don't have your food situation lined up and stored up and settled in kind of by May, you're really going to be pushing it towards the manifestation of the crisis, which will be late spring and into early summer. You'll start seeing a lot of indicators in the peripheral knowledge coming out in your local mainstream media. You'll start seeing specific words related to crops not being able to be harvested, bad weather affecting crop production. You'll see that more and more often the word famine. You'll see more stories about food prices rising, and you'll feel it instantly at the store every time they have to shift the cost of food up.
Yeah, which basically ties in with, they're going to be outlawing vitamins and minerals and stuff like that. You can buy supplements.
I know, you
the
poor
Codex
fellows.
Alimentarius,
Now, hey, here's a way to get around those fellows. Start thinking asymmetrically, okay? They had a situation which was analogous in Crete and in Greece when the Germans took over in World War II, that their sources of vitamins and so forth were stripped away from them. Here it's being done by legislature. There it was done as a side effect of the war, but the local populace reacted by getting very sharp about what vitamins and so forth could be obtained from local weeds and other things. So, for instance, you Scottish fellows, any gardener up there, you know you've got to deal with purslane. Well, purslane is a very excellent source of all kinds of vitamins and minerals, including vitamin C and zinc. So you get, you can actually eat your weeds and then tell them to take their Codex Alimentarius and shove it where the sun doesn't shine.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, further on in your report there, and this was something that intrigued me. See, I tend to have people on a Monday night on TNS Radio, Clif, that's got a variety of different topics. For instance, a few weeks back there we had a man by the name of Tony Topping, and he talks about UFOs and stuff like that. And this is one of the parts of the data that it's suggesting that a mainstream media source showing a meeting, an international meeting, would be taking place, an emergency kind of meeting, and a general would pop up and then start talking about the sun and energies from space,